Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another Halloween card. A little bit of a departure from the pastels and cutesy Halloween cards I've been mostly making. I've done a couple spookier ones. This definitely takes a departure from that, but I had to do it. The ideas were just brewing. So I started off with a green card base. And I used Simon Says Stamps very, very low tack tape to tape it down because it's the full card here and I want it to like lay flat. And then I'm using the chunky sweater stencil. So I've got that taped into place. And then I've got some crackle paste. And my crackle paste is old. I've had this for years. I've used it in a bunch of videos, you know, when I'm playing around with mixed media and that sort of a thing. So my crackle paste is old, so it's very, very thick, but that's fine. So I put some on a palette in 3 different piles because I want to tint it different colors. And I'm going to use distress paints to tint it. I'm not worried about, this is matte, pretty much opaque crackle paste. Like I said, this one's old, so it's kind of whatever. But you can use like reinkers, different things. But I was going to use the paints anyway, well, especially the red and the brown. So I use those. So I'm using Candied Apple, and then I'm adding some ground espresso paint to it because Candied Apple is like the brightest red of all the distress colors. It is a very obviously bright red. So I'm going to tone it down with that ground espresso, and then I'm going to do ground espresso kind of on its own, but also mixed in because whatever's left on my palette knife. Not worried about keeping colors separate or anything like that. Like this is going to get messy, and it's going to get extra messy because I mess it up in a little, oh, the things that went on when I was making this card. I'll get to it. Anyway, I'm not cleaning off my palette knife because these are going to blend together anyway, and there's just no point. So I used Rustic Wilderness for the green. And again, I'm getting a little bit of red mixed in there. When you mix green and red together, they kind of neutralize each other and they'll basically turn brown. So that's all well and good. And then as I'm applying it, that's when I immediately discovered I didn't mix near enough. Usually I'm very good at kind of eyeballing how much I need of things. But this time I way underestimated, but that's okay. I'm going to apply the paste I have first. See where I'm at. So just all over, like just random. Like I said, this is going to mix out. I want this to be messy. So don't have enough. So I wiped off my palette knife before I dip it in a clean jar and then pull out more crackle paste. And this I'm going to add in the green. I think I add a little bit of the brown as well, just so I can fill in the remaining areas of this stenciled sweater. So mixing this all up, and you can see like there's some reds getting in there, some brown. That's fine. It's totally fine. So now I can fill in all these other areas. Now, because this is opaque and it's also been tinted with paint, if you're like doing things like this or applying layers, or you're wanting things to not be a hot mess like this, this will cover whatever was underneath, which again, I'm fine with, but I actually go in and add a bit more brown just because the green kind of, you know, my newest layer is kind of taken over. So I add just a little bit of brown paint, mix up that with what's left. When I'm done this, I'm going to take the stencil off, and then I immediately go and wash my stencil and my palette knife, my little palette here, just with some soap and water, and it's good to go. And then I was, you know, answering some emails, sitting here with my phone, and I wasn't filming that part of it, but I don't know how I managed to literally flip my phone into the not dry stencil paste. And I debated for a second, like having to redo it. On camera here, it doesn't look as bad, but in real life, you could literally see the outline of my phone. And I was like, no, just nah. However, because the paste wasn't completely dry, as I was touching it, it was kind of tacky. And this just worked. So I just went all over with my finger because, again, it doesn't need to be perfect. Little smears here and there is fine. But also by tapping it with my finger everywhere, I get this really fun texture that, because the crackle paste itself, it's going to crackle and create its own texture, but this just added to it and it saved the card. So I just did that, just tapped my finger all over the place, and it kind of like stuck to the paste and then, pulled the paste up and I got this really neat crackly, very textured background. And then I just use baby wipes. Thankfully, I have a case on my phone. I have a glass protector, screen protector, all the things, because I am clumsy. I am so clumsy. I'm amazed I haven't smashed this phone to smithereens. I try to take very good care of them. They're expensive. So anyway, cleaned off all of that with baby wipes. My phone was saved. The card was saved. Hurrah. Anyway, so let the paste completely dry. And then I took it off the board, and I'm going to use distress inks and blending brushes to just add more. I was originally going to just do the blending first, like just blend on the card base and then add the paste. But either way works, honestly. It doesn't matter. The neat thing though, sometimes, and it's not going to be very obvious with a card like this, but adding ink and whatnot afterwards, a lot of times the inks can kind of seep into the crackled areas and like really emphasize that crackle. So that's kind of what I was going for. But again, because I'm doing like such a hot mess of a card, it doesn't really matter. But I used, what colors did I use? I used aged mahogany, ground espresso, and forest moss on the card base itself. And then I die cut some cream cardstock with Simon's Giant Hugs card wrap wafer dies. I used these last year, and I specifically bought the wafer dies to do last year's card because just the idea wouldn't leave me alone. And then I was like, I need to get more use out of this die set. It's meant to send people hugs, a card with an actual hug. Very sweet, very thoughtful. And here I am turning it into like a monstrosity. But anywho, I die cut cream colored cardstock with those wafer dies. And then I'm blending those inks over it. I'm using those same like aged mahogany, ground espresso. I'm even going to add the forest moss. But I'm also adding tea dye and hickory smoke. I'm going for zombie skin here. So again, doesn't need to be perfect. It literally needs to be a hot mess. Like, have you seen zombies? Do you watch The Walking Dead? Don't tell me anything. I have seasons to catch up on. I don't have time for television. I make videos. Anyway, I made sure to blend on the opposite side. With something like this, you need to blend both sides because you're going to see both sides, and it would look absolutely ridiculous to have one side, all zombie, messed up, gross, and the other side's just pristine cardstock. You know what I mean? So I blended both sides with all those inks, just letting them do their thing. Not worried about it, Once those are blended, I'm going to start adding splatter. So this time it's going to be straight up paint, not mixed with anything. So I'm using the Candied Apple, which I'm still going to add some ground espresso to because blood is not that bright red. And, it oxidizes. Like, I put thought into this. Also added some water because Candied Apple paint is very thick. Most distress paints aren't that thick because there's not any fillers in them. But Candied Apple, if you guys have watched my videos, red pigments have a mind of their own and they are a beast to deal with, whether it's in paint or ink or just anything. Red. So I've added like water and the ground espresso paint till I got, the color I wanted. And then I heavily splattered this all over this sweater. So I heavily splattered that. And then I also splattered the little Giant Hugs card wrap die cuts. Heavily splattered those as well. Working in my splat box, using my fan brush. And then I also splattered the inside of the card. I wasn't going to do that, but then I was like, actually, this will work with the sentiment. So I just kind of propped that up a bit. I'm not worried about the back of this card. I had a plan with that the whole time. So just added splatter to the inside. I let that dry, and it did dry back a bit, like a little bit darker. So I was like, I need a little more red. So I did the same thing, but I added just a little bit less ground espresso. So I've got some Candied Apple paint, just a little bit of ground espresso, so it's a little bit brighter, and added more splatter, just tons. Covered these pieces, added a bit to the inside. While all that was drying, I die cut my sentiments, which of course is the Love Your Guts wafer die from CZ Design that was released. It was part of a Valentine's release like a couple years ago. Still one of my faves. It's just a great way to say it to a friend. I love your I That's what it's meant for. I love them. But I just like to take a twisted view on it. So I die cut that from Schoolhouse Red cardstock. And then the outline I die cut from Slate Gray cardstock. I blended those inks onto it, again, to mess it up and deepen it and everything. And then I used some of the Spooky Salutations sentiment strips because perfect. Hello. There's the one that says it's zombie season. Perfect. And then the other one said Happy Halloween. And I actually blended a little bit of that aged mahogany distress ink over those as well because I didn't want them to be crisp white anything. So that was all done. Everything is dry. So now it's time to assemble. So the card base I cut down. This was planned. That's why I'd used the tape originally. All of that, I was fine with it because I cut it all off. So it ends up being about 4 inches by 5 1/4. Because this way I can adhere these, the tabs basically of this Giant Hugs card wrap to what will be the technical back of this card. And then I'm going to cover that up. So I just trimmed them down. No rhyme or reason, just so that they wrap around this card nicely. Apply adhesive, and then I'm gluing this to the very back of the card base. So right now the back of the card is ugly. It's, got the tabs. Wouldn't be the end of the world, but if I was keeping the card just as is, I would just adhere another piece of cardstock like I'm doing here. But this time I die cut it, or not die cut, I trimmed down just a piece of black cardstock to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it creates a little bit of a border too for this, and then it also covers the back of that card base. So I've got that. And then my sentiment strip, I've got it here. I actually have to add quite a bit of glue to this. When you're adhering on top of something that's been such heavy texture, like this Crackle texture base that I, stuck my fingers in and my phone and everything. I even threw my phone at it. I did it all. So adhered that, adhered the Love Your Guts and Happy Halloween to the inside. And that finished off this card. This was a lot of fun to make. It's just gives you guys a look into, where my mind jumps around from pink gnomies like my last card to blood splattered zombie hugs. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post, and I will have picture links in the blog post. I'll have a supply list. All that info will be below if any of you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribing, especially you guys taking the time to leave comments and thumbs up. I very much appreciate it, and it does appease the robot overlords and helps push my videos out, so I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.